Hello, and welcome to this lesson on price discrimination as well as some government intervention to markets. So, price discrimination happens when the seller charges different prices to different customers. And in perfect price discrimination, all customers are charged different prices based on what they specifically are willing to pay for that item. Since all customers are charged what they are willing to pay, they do not get an additional benefit of paying a lower market price. So, consumer surplus, which is that additional benefit, is wiped out to zero. The consumer surplus is instead converted into profit for the firm, more producer surplus, basically. Since consumers are charged what they are willing to pay, the marginal revenue in perfect price discrimination is going to equal the demand curve since they are going to be charged exactly what they are willing to pay. Here's how it will look like. You have the demand curve for an imperfectly competitive market equaling the marginal revenue curve because each person is charged exactly what they are willing to pay. No need to lower the prices when you try to get more customers. They're all charged exactly what they're willing to pay. You still have the marginal cost and the average total cost curves, but you can see there's no additional marginal revenue because the marginal revenue is equal to the demand. So, since the firm is producing where the marginal cost or the supply meets the demand, since the demand is not the marginal revenue, a firm is going to be producing at the socially optimal quantity. A monopoly is going to be producing at the socially optimal quantity if there is perfect price discrimination. However, the entire consumer surplus will be wiped out and turned into profits for the monopoly since they get to charge each customer exactly what they're willing to pay. Here you can see that they're producing at this quantity and the prices for all of the consumers go all the way up here. There's no need to label a specific price as each consumer pays a completely different price um, under perfect price discrimination. So you would just get the amount that they are producing right here. You get your ATC, and then all of these other prices up to there to the top are going to be the areas of profit. So you get this huge area of profit here when a firm can perfectly price discriminate. Since the marginal cost equals the demand under perfect price discrimination at the quantity produced, the firm is allocatively efficient. They're not underproducing and they're also not overproducing, but they are charging customers exactly what they're willing to pay, which is going to be way higher than the market price if price discrimination was illegal. So they're basically producing at the socially optimal quantity, but they're overcharging what people would have paid if they paid at the market price. Now, governments usually ban perfect price discrimination since it leads to customers receiving different prices for the same product. And sometimes governments also enact antitrust laws to prevent monopoly power to improve competition. More competition means more innovation and better markets, usually. Governments sometimes allow natural monopolies, though, to exist, since a natural monopoly is going to have an ATC that is decreasing at the socially optimal quantity. But they may enact a price ceiling to regulate the monopoly into two things. They could either regulate it into having a fair return level, they're going to put the price equal to the ATC at that quantity, and that's going to lead to a profit of zero and normal profit. Now, remember, normal profit is zero economic profit right there. Or they could put it at the socially optimal level. That's where the price equals marginal cost. Basically, demand meets the marginal cost, demand meets supply. This may lead to the monopoly having a loss. So, in order to keep the monopoly running, they might lead to subsidize it. But remember, this is a price ceiling, so they're limiting the monopoly's ability to set their price by making it a price control at the highest level. So here's how it will look with a natural monopoly. We know it's a natural monopoly because the ATC right here, ATC is decreasing at the socially optimal quantity. It's decreasing all the way down here, and this is the socially optimal quantity, so it's still decreasing in that portion right there. Since the ATC is decreasing at the socially optimal quantity, we have a natural monopoly. And this is happening. The ATC is decreasing at the socially optimal quantity due to economies of scale. As the firm scales up, they have decreasing long run average total cost, which is going to be decreasing right there at the socially optimal quantity. Now, the government could do three things. First, they could leave the natural monopoly unregulated. In that case, the monopoly will produce where MR equals MC right there. And since they're unregulated, they're going to charge all the way up to the demand curve. And that's going to be the unregulated price. Very high price right there. The second thing they could do is they could institute a fair return price ceiling, making it so that this is the highest price that the monopoly can charge. This is going to make it so that they're going to produce here at this fair return level equal to the ATC. That means that the firm is going to have a normal profit. So this is the fair return quantity, and they have a price ceiling set at that price. The third option would be to institute a socially optimal price ceiling, which is going to make it so that the firm produces at the socially optimal quantity. They cannot raise the price higher than that right there. Now you can see here that at the socially optimal quantity, the price is below the ATC. So this firm would be making a loss. So they're going to require a subsidy from the government. Um, you can see in all of these sections here, they would be socially optimal because that's where demand meets supply, demand meets MC, and that's going to mean that the firm is allocatively efficient. They're not productively efficient though because that's not the lowest part of the ATC, but they would be allocatively efficient at that specific level. That's what we call it, the socially optimal quantity. That's all for this lesson, and that's the last lesson of microeconomics. Thank you for being part of this course.